if you haven't thought a whole bunch about it, you might have an opinion, but your opinion's probably not super well informed, because you can't really have a super well informed opinion about anything that you haven't thought a lot about. Well, those are all abstract. How about something more personal? What's best for you? What's good for you? How should you be making your prioritization decisions? What kind of responsibilities should you be taking on? Not which ones do you have, but which ones should you be taking on and why? Imagine your life without a focus on school or health or family or friends or anything. Think about what your life looks like at that point. The value and the power of your life to yourself, first off, is going to have a direct correlation with how many commitments you fulfill and how deeply you fulfill them. And then that's also going to be your value to your family, your value to your friends, your value to your society. It's going to be the commitments that you fulfill. And if I was completely free, I'd be so happy. If I had no responsibilities, no commitments, I'd be so happy. Probably not. Probably not. You know, people who have too much free time and then like make drama, they make problems. It's a really important question, that last part there. Like, how do you choose? Like, how do you choose what's good for you? Or how do you choose what to prioritize? Because it seems so obvious to us. When I ask that question, it almost sounds like I'm a 5-year-old asking, yeah, but how? Because we think like it's obvious what's good for me. But I don't know that it's so obvious what's good for us. Like if you never, like for example, if I were to ask you, how does the curvature of the earth affect a sniper round? Could you tell me that? Or if I'd ask you, how does wind resistance affect a sniper round? Could you tell me that? Kind of. Probably more than most people, because you've thought about it. In other words, you only can really talk intelligently about the things that you've thought about. So if I were to ask you, how does the curvature of the earth or how does air resistance affect a sniper round at 1,000 meters? Okay, maybe you can talk a little bit more than some people, but there are people out there, they study their whole lives. That's how they can talk intelligently about it. And you think about a topic that you can talk intelligently about that you've never really thought about. It's like, for example, you're going to notice that in this class, I almost never, if ever, I almost never talk about politics. There's a reason for it. And it's not because I'm afraid of being controversial. Hopefully that you can dispel that. I'm not afraid of being controversial. But it's I mean, how much time have any of us really thought about political things? Like, when I first started teaching here, we used to give an essay on the first day of class for everybody to get, and we used to call it like a writing diagnostic, which we could see what people were good at, what they were bad at. And the topic my first year here was abortion. They were asking students, are you in favor or against abortion? And then my second year here, the essay was about abortion. Then my third year here was about abortion. Every year the essay was the same. What do you guys think about abortion? And even though the students themselves would be the same grade level every year, 10th grade, students were telling us that they were tired of writing about it because they've been writing about it since like 7th grade. That seems to be like that was always like the go-to essay assignment. And it struck me as a weird thing because I thought, like how much, like you might have an opinion about it, but if I were to ask you guys in here, especially if you're extremely opinionated about it one way or the other, how much time have you really spent thinking about it? In other words, you've got these two sides, people who are like just adamantly in favor of it, people who are adamantly against it. And if I were to ask you why does the other side think what they think, I wonder if you know. Like for example, if you're somebody who's pro-abortion, do you think that the anti-abortion side sits there and like twirls their mustache and says, "Oh, we can limit women's rights today"? Do you think that's what they're thinking about? And if you're somebody who's in favor of who's against abortion, do you think that the people who are in favor of it are sitting there twirling their mustaches and saying, "Oh, we can murder babies today"? Do you really think it's that cartoonish? And the answer is no. Both sides have really good reasons for thinking the things that they think. But if I were to ask you what you think about it, I guess a better question would be to ask how much time have you spent thinking about it? Because there are books and volumes of people who've been arguing about this topic. And so it seems like a premature thing on it when you show up, hey, whether you thought about this topic or not, Tell me what you think about it and why. Because you really haven't thought much about it. You might have an opinion about it, but it isn't a deep opinion probably. If I were to ask you guys about economic policy or about minimum wage or any of those things, you probably haven't thought much about it. Maybe you've seen something. Even if I were to ask you about like what's popular now, if I were to ask you about what's going on in Gaza, some people have some really strong opinions about it. But if I were to ask you what you know about it, how much time have you spent studying it and thinking about it? The answer is probably not much. And it's not a bad thing. I don't mean that as a pejorative. It isn't like you need to spend more time. No, it just means if you haven't thought a whole bunch about it, you might have an opinion, but your opinion's probably not super well informed, because you can't really have a super well informed opinion about anything that you haven't thought a lot about. Well, those are all abstract. How about something more personal? What's best for you? What's good for you? How should you be making your prioritization decisions? What kind of responsibilities should you be taking on? Not which ones do you have, but which ones should you be taking on and why? It's a really healthy attitude. I was thinking right there, like what's good for me in school and what's good for me in health. If you said that you're looking at a longer term thing there, try to figure out what's best for you in your life. Because all of these things are going to contribute to a good life. If you walk into like your English class, for example, and say, I'm going in the Marines, this has nothing to do with my life, this English class, then you won't find anything useful in this class. But is there stuff in this class that will be useful for you? Yeah. Even this question now, how do you prioritize the things that are important? How do you prioritize the things that are, how do you prioritize the value of life even, which we're going to get to next quarter? Because in the military, you're going to make decisions that affect people's lives. It doesn't, not just like people are going to live or die by your decisions, which might happen, but also just, generally, what kind of, if you're in some level of command, how can you kind of direct people? How can you guide people? And do you do it because of what's best for them? Or do you do it because of what's best for yourself? Or do you do it because of what's best for the country? Or do you do what's best for the people, for your friends? Because, all of those things are going to play into it. And if you don't have a value system, if you don't know what's good generally, then you really can't guide yourself and orient yourself towards something. In other words, to know what the best thing is, you can't, let me just spell that for a second. You can't know what the best thing is. And that's one of those really crappy things about life, but also interesting and exciting. What should you do with your life? Well, the should suggests that you're that you have a purpose in your life that was preordained and you have to discover it. And that's like a big mystery of life. Let me find out why I was created, what I was here to do. But if you weren't created and put here to do something, well, then you don't have anything to really guide yourself towards. You know what I mean? In other words, if I were to ask you, how do you prioritize these things? Well, what's good for me in school? What's good for me in health? And if I were to ask you what's your life goal, and you didn't have that thing to be a Marine, if your life goal was, I don't know yet, well, then you don't have anything to orient yourself towards. You don't have like a goal in mind. Like if you were to ask me, hey Scott, how do I get to Sacramento? I can point you in the direction of Sacramento. If you ask me, hey Scott, how do I get there? Where? There. Where's there? I don't know. Somewhere. There. How do I get there? I don't know. Go east? Okay, great, thanks. And you go east. I mean, how do you even know if you got there? How do you know what you have found? Because you don't have that goal. And so you ultimately may not have that goal at the end to be a Marine or to get to Sacramento. But what you do have is these little checkpoints. At the very least, I know that wherever I go in life, I should probably do the best for myself. And right now I find myself in school, I find myself dealing with my health, whatever these other things are that you have control over in your life, to maximize those things. I have control over my intellectual development. I have control over my physical development. What's best for me in my friendships. What's best for me in my family. And then you have, at least you can now focus yourself on maximizing these things, so that when you do develop a life goal, you've got a good foundation underneath you to get there, if that makes sense. I talk about, I mentioned to you guys before that I graduated from high school with a 1.8, very low GPA. But when I was ditching my math class, those 67 days, I wasn't like sitting at Cotijas, like scrolling social media, waiting for the period to end so I could go to my next class. I didn't think I was going to be using math very much. I was wrong. Surprise, surprise. But I knew that I was going to be swinging a baseball bat. So I would go down to my baseball field, get a pitching machine in the batting cage. I would take batting practice. At the very least, I knew I wanted to find out what was best for myself in batting practice. I was wrong about what was best for myself in school, but at least I could focus on doing that one thing well and finding a goal and becoming better at it. Now, it turns out that did help a bit because it gave me discipline, actually exercised the discipline. But don't miss that because don't presume that because I didn't do well in school that meant I wasn't reading. I was reading. I was reading everything as much as I possibly could. I think I mentioned before that on my shelf back there, if you look in the top, right underneath the green thing, whatever it is, it's holding a heart, I have these books, the People's Almanacs. Those are the books I read when I was a little kid. They're big, giant books with small print, and each of them, they talk about, name it. What are you interested in? You interested in serial killers? There's a section there about serial killers. Are you interested in geography? There's a section there about geography. Are you interested in history and mysteries? There's stuff in there about that. The book is full of subjects about everything and anything that's in there. And so I read a lot of it. So that when I finally got to college, I realized, I guess I probably should pay more attention to this. I wasn't as far behind as you might think because I had read a lot. And how much of the stuff that I read in there have I used? A bit, but way more than I could have used if I didn't have access to it. So I can talk about, I can talk to you about philosophy, of course. I can talk to you about literature, of course. I can talk to you about, I had a parent here on open house. I was talking to them about military history. It's something fascinating me. I can talk to you about psychology. I can talk to you about any subject except cooking, chemistry, and architecture. Those are three subjects I know nothing about. I can listen to you talk about them. I can't really talk to you about those three things. But other than that, anybody like conspiracy theories? I love conspiracy theories. Anybody interested in inner space travel? I'm fascinated by it. Anybody interested in the physics behind star formation? I can talk to you about that. I can talk to you about anything except for cooking, architecture, and chemistry. Because we don't always know what's going to be good for us. We don't know what we're going to need. And even if we do have this vague idea of I'm going to go into the military, stuff happens. I had this one student, I remember my first year, I still remember his name, dude. His name was Alan Coda. I still remember his name for some reason. This guy, I had him as a 10th grader. This guy's whole life was Marines. This guy was ROTC. This guy's whole life was geared towards that. And then he signed up for it. He was shipping out like the day after graduation, literally. And then the dude went and got a tattoo like a week before he was supposed to ship out. You're not supposed to do that. He was already signed up and everything. And then he went to MEPS and they checked him out. He had new tattoos and they said, "You can't ship with those. You just got those." He said, "Yeah, I just got them." He knew he couldn't. He just thought it wouldn't be a big deal. So they pulled him. They wouldn't let him ship, which means it's called a dep loss. So the guy had to sit and wait for 6 more months before he could join. In those 6 months, he completely changed. He met somebody, and his whole life trajectory changed. If you'd ask that guy, "Are you going in the Marines?" 100%, absolutely. And it was good to have that to work himself towards. But where are you actually going to be? You can't know. You can't know. But what you can know is that the more things that you get good and proficient in, the better your opportunities are once you get there. What's it going to be? I mean, are you going to lose opportunities for being too intelligent, knowing too much stuff, being able to talk to too many people about too many subjects? Are you going to lose opportunities in life because you're too healthy? Are you going to lose opportunities in life for having too good of interpersonal relationships with people, being able to communicate? Are you going to fail in life because you're just too family-oriented, too strongly connected to your family? Whatever area that you can commit yourself to, because freedom is not just the absence of commitments. Commitments is exactly what gives life its meaning. What is your life if you don't have any of these? Like now, if this is you, imagine your life without a focus on school or health or family or friends or anything. Think about what your life looks like at that point. The value and the power of your life to yourself, first off, is going to have a direct correlation with how many commitments you fulfill. and how deeply you fulfill them. And then that's also going to be your value to your family, your value to your friends, your value to your society. It's going to be the commitments that you fulfill. And that's why it's important to not abandon them, to have them. And it's the ability to choose, first off, what those commitments are, but then there's that second part also, to be able to do it. It isn't, if I sit here and go, man, my life would be great if I could run a marathon, and I'm completely ignoring the fact that I have no legs. I can choose what's best for my life, but if I can't actually commit myself to it, it doesn't matter. So you realize that there are even more limitations now, so that the things that you choose have to be things that you can actually do. So, yeah, get this thing out of our heads that, probably, yeah. So get these things out of our heads that, like, if I was completely free, I'd be so happy. If I had no responsibilities, no commitments, I'd be so happy. Probably not. Probably not. You know, people who have too much free time and then make drama, they make problems. There's an old saying that the devil's, what is it? Idle hands are the devil's plaything. If you have nothing to do, you find trouble. People have no drama in their life is too clean, they make drama for themselves. People have no problems, they seek out problems, because that's what it is for us to be human, to overcome things. And that's what these commitments are. They're things for us to overcome and things to fulfill. And that's what you're going to find is going to give your days, your weeks, your months, your years, and ultimately your life meaning and purpose. So remember, the first part of it is life is suffering. The second part, though, is that you can't choose not to suffer, but you can choose what you suffer for. So just choose wisely. Make it something that makes the suffering worthwhile. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Talia, and then Lord Benjamin. Anybody else gonna jump in on this? I'm missing a couple voices today. Yeah. Where's Gaio, man? That guy's like the heart and soul of the class, and he's not here. He got me all excited about the year, and now he just stopped showing up. He's just like my dad. Yeah, go ahead.